lawsuit thing. Now we're in the news,
Now,
right?
see.
Yep.
And if you're just joining us now, of course, we're talking about the cease and desist order we hypothetically might be getting um, for using the band "Falling in Reverse's." What the hell was the name of that track? It's the new
We
track by
just
Falling in
listened to
Reverse.
it.
It's an
Watch the
amazing
world
track.
burn.
Watch the world burn. Yeah,
Watch the world burn.
go watch that video. Um,
Go watch that video. Report back to us on
mhm.
where we're like based on the first 5 seconds of the video where you thought it was going, and then where
Yes.
you ended up, and to
Yeah.
like try
Tell
and
us
connect
about your
those dots
journey.
because it was a journey. It was a good
Yes.
journey. I'd like Sam got me onto a new song, so I'm gonna have to look them up and the whole thing. So always, always getting some new music and stuff.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for
Yeah,
the introduction. I am, of course, Mr. Sam Burns, joined as always by my good friend and stalwart compatriot, Mr. Kevin McCarthy. Kevin, how are you today, sir?
doing fantastic, Sam. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm really excited to. So I have a friend, Carly, of mine, who periodically hits me up on Instagram. She's like, "You should do a podcast about this." Of course, her voice doesn't sound like that, but this was one of Carly's ideas. Is how to identify bad programming, right? And of course, there's a lot baked into that statement.
Oh yeah.
Um, I think I think first we should maybe start with some like, um, what's the word? Um, like warnings? Maybe not warnings, but like, you know,
I
some.
know the word you're looking for.
Yeah, I want to protect myself
Um,
legally.
um, I see now I'm frustrated because I know because now in my head like I know the word you're looking for
Yes,
because it's not warning. It's like something statement. Statement's the second word in the phrase of what I'm thinking of.
we're bad. Anyway, it'll come
Yeah,
to us the moment we stop trying to figure it out. So,
yeah,
like, how do I? I think that any programming can be bad programming, right? And we're not here to endorse anybody or anything, right?
hmm
We certainly don't get paid by anybody to endorse or to badmouth any kind of programming.
yet.
Um, yet, hint,
Qualifying
hint,
statement.
qualifying state. Thank you. Fucking
There we
A, sir.
go. See,
Yep.
there it
See,
is. Got it. Nailed it.
so we got our qualifying statement. We're not here to endorse or knock anybody, but I believe, and I like to think that you would also agree with this, that we can make some objective statements about a body of work, in this
Yeah.
case, programming, right? Um, and because anything can be good or bad, I'd love to know if you agree with this. Like the first thing that you should identify in your quest to be like, what's the best program, is to figure out what the fuck you want to do.
Yep.
Like,
It's
what are
yeah.
your goals, man?
Yep. Because for example, if I'm like, hey, I want to put on 10 pounds of muscle, right? That's my goal. Bench press 300 pounds.
Yes.
And then I pick a programming that is 5 days a week of running, five to
Right.
10K.
You pick
I'm
a
like,
Chris
guess
Hinshaw
what?
endurance
Yeah,
program.
exactly. That's a bad program for
Yes.
what I'm trying to do. It's not going to help me get there. Um, I'm going to get really good at running, hopefully.
Hopefully,
Um, but
or really
it's not
injured.
going to do it. Well,
Yeah, maybe depends.
you know,
If you
you
don't run a
know,
lot and then you start running a lot,
yeah, went through that. Had an Achilles injury. Fun stuff. If you want to know how to get it, just like as a side tangent, if you want to know how you can get injured trying to do whatever it is you're trying to do,
we could
hit
tell
me
you.
up. Let me know because I can tell you exactly how to get injured and like in the shortest period of time possible.
Follow
You
my
know,
proven
follow my
five-step method.
proven. Yep, it's called don't half-ass two things, whole ass one thing. That's
Yes.
what it is. If you're gonna run, might as well run every day for an hour
Oh.
because that just makes sense. And then you end up with an Achilles injury, and you're like, "How did I manage this one?"
Oh wait.
Yeah, weird.
Shocker. Well, okay, so that's a caveat, right? Like this really important
Yeah,
is any program that is not designed to serve your goals is a bad program. And so this gets a little bit muddier. So like that's a really clear cut answer. Like if you are looking for a powerlifting program or a
Yeah.
bodybuilding program or a endurance program or something specific, that's a really easy thing to figure out. Does it include the thing that I want to get better at? If not, it's a bad program for that. And there are some exceptions here and there with a couple things like accessory work and stuff like that. But by and large, like you want to be doing the thing you want to get better at. That gets
Yeah.
muddier when we talk about CrossFit though, because like in attempting to be prepared for the unknown and the unknowable,
Hmm.
we talk a lot about being, generally good at everything. We are
Yep.
specialists in not specializing, right?
Yep.
So I think a lot of people get frustrated. I certainly I get comments on Instagram. I get people who DM me who are my friends or former athletes or former clients. Or we had a gentleman reach out to us and be like, "Can you give me some good examples of good
Yeah.
programming?"
Point me in the right direction. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's essentially
We
what he was asking for, was exactly that. Just some advice and like, hey, I'm not really sure where to go
Yeah,
and what's good, what's bad, the whole thing.
yeah,
So
and I and it can be helpful then still to define like what are your goals, and in like what are your goals, there are also things like what are your time constraints.
yep.
But we got a whole bunch of things we can dig in here. So like CrossFit programming, right? So
Yep.
narrowing in on CrossFit programming.
Yep.
What do you think is the first biggest question that like if I came to you, we didn't know each other, be like, hey, I want to become better at CrossFit. I don't have
Yep.
access to an affiliate, or I'm not sure if my affiliate's programming is like the the most optimal. How can I figure that out? What's the first question you're going to come back to me with?
Ooh, like if you're going kind of it on your own type thing, you're going to either
Either
garage
or.
gymming it or you're not sure. Okay.
Yeah. Because I think that I mean
I mean,
as a general assessment, I would say that like the questions that you ask to find the best program for a person probably maybe don't differ, or maybe they do differ for you. But like for me, if it's like I'm gonna try to find the best program for you, whether
yeah.
that's including something you should be doing or excluding something you're already doing, it's going to start with the same body of questions probably.
Yeah, and I think it starts with, what are your overarching goals? And,
Sure.
as when we spoke with Pat Barber the last time, we broke down like, whether looking good is a viable goal or not as kind of the big picture.
Yeah.
So you can have multiple goals that you're kind of working to it towards at the same time. Like, what's the overarching goal?
So if the overarching
And
so CrossFit talks, I'm gonna make this really difficult. CrossFit
okay,
talks
good.
about what's the phrase I want to use? CrossFit talks about being fit and capable in a bunch of different things for as long as possible. I want
Mhm.
that.
Okay. So then for me, the key there is variance.
Right.
Like that's going to be the major overarching key to good quality and effective CrossFit programming is variance. And I think people's understanding of variance can sometimes be a little bit muddy, sometimes be a little bit,
Mm,
one way to one side versus the other. There are some people, when you say variance, you get this argument or statement a lot from people outside of the CrossFit space is they're like, it's just a bunch of random shit.
right.
Like varied just means random to them
Right.
because each workout is different. It looks different. It's got different movements, different loadings, rep schemes, and all the rest. That what CrossFit does is just random. And I
Yep.
think there was a point as our little game of telephone from Greg Glassman, Spiderwebbing Outwards, was
Yep.
happening in the early 2000s, even maybe up to like the 2010-ish range, that's what affiliates would do. The coach would come in,
Yeah.
they would slap something on the whiteboard. Your warm up is a 400-meter run, and let's fucking get some.
Yeah.
And that was what class was. And I know of gyms that would, as they changed coaches throughout the day, you had
Mm,
Sam coach the 5:30 and 6:30
yeah.
a.m. I coached the noon. It's just whoever was coaching the class just slapped something on the board. So
Oh,
classes were even doing different workouts throughout the day.
yeah.
And the reason that's wild is because the affiliate model that we know now generally has classes doing the same work. Like it's the same workout for all classes for that day. And
It's
then the
it's
next day is something different.
it's
So
programmed
every,
for the affiliate, not for the
exactly,
individual coach's class.
exactly. So everybody that steps foot in the affiliate is doing the same thing on that day.
Yes.
Whereas previously, if it was just Sam comes in and slaps something on the board, and then I come in and slap something on the board, we're calling it variance, but it kind of is just random. But then
Yes.
if Sam is my athlete and he takes the 5:30 a.m. with some coach and they
Yeah.
do squat cleans,
Yes.
and I coach the noon and I give them running,
Right.
and then the next day, Sam takes my noon class. I'm like, well, yesterday we ran. Let's get below parallel. Let's do some wall balls. So he did some squat cleans on Monday, some wall balls on
Right.
Tuesday, and then a heavy back squat on Wednesday,
Right.
because that's just the classes he took and what the coaches were doing. For me, it was like I was maybe varied
Yep.
in my approach throughout my noon classes I coach, but I have no idea, no bearing on what Sam was doing throughout the week, taking different classes.
Right.
So that's kind of like early, whatever, to variance. That's kind of where I think people get the idea that it's random.
Right.
But for anyone that really understands programming really well, and I'll give a shout out to a good friend of ours, Larry Thomas, who posted this on
Mm,
Instagram. And I know Sam
yeah.
shared it. I'm 99.9% sure I shared it, where Larry posted, like, this is what your members see. And it was just a little graphic with his workout of the day for his affiliate CrossFit Accolade.
And it was not a complicated workout.
No,
it was like a couplet or a single movement heavy day.
yeah, I think it was a heavy day. It might have been like deadlift 5x5 or something like that.
Right.
Something super simple, but it was just the graphic that he puts out to his members on Instagram to show their workout of the day. And then you swiped over and he was like,
Hmm.
what they see versus what I see. And when you swiped over, you saw a spreadsheet, a Google sheet
Yes.
that had modalities, time domains, rep schemes, all that fun stuff, everything that we kind of quantify through workout, task or time priority.
Well, you know where that's from, right?
Is that from the level two?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's
Um,
the programming assessment calculator from the level 2
yeah.
manual.
So he has all that written out on a sheet, and then what he has planned for
Hmm.
that week,
Yep.
essentially. And then he goes down through for each workout, and you're essentially trying to balance things as best you can. You know,
Yeah.
it's pretty hard to be perfectly balanced all the way across a week, because otherwise then you'd just be doing the same workout essentially over and over and over again. As you vary things up, you are going to, you know, touch on a couple things
Yes.
multiple times throughout the
Yeah.
week,
Yeah.
which is absolutely fine. But you're trying to kind of balance out that sheet. So you're trying to get workouts, you know, in varied time domains, short, moderate, long,
Hmm.
various loading ranges, you
Hmm.
know, light, moderate, heavy, low, moderate, high volume, trying to balance monostructural gymnastics, weightlifting. You're trying to balance those things across things. So
Yeah.
when we talk variance, we're looking to touch on all those different points,
Yeah.
you know, throughout a week, a month, a year.
Right.
But it's not random. It's the farthest thing from random.
Yeah.
It has to be very like meticulously calculated and planned,
Hmm.
and you know, things like that to really work and give your people the best results that you can, whilst keeping them healthy, injury free, and able to maintain a sustainable level of intensity over the long term.
Yeah.
You know,
There is so much packed into what you just said.
so
Um,
play that back real slow.
yeah, for real. So for people who don't like who haven't been living, eating, and breathing coaching or programming for
Mm,
like multiple years at a time, I want to make sure that I go back and I hit a couple things that you talked about that
yep.
are really important, right? So to your point about coaches running different programs or different workouts based on the individual coach's preferences and a an athlete swapping classes, for example, and going and getting like an overlapping stimulus. So originally, um, and Pat's talked about this, like at CrossFit Santa Cruz, the original CrossFit gym, like it was essentially a personal training class. Like you ran your class. So other people wouldn't just like hop into another class because you were their trainer.
Right.
They couldn't
You had
go and
your
be
group that came to see you.
exactly like it was
Right.
group personal training.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's
like,
where the model in the level one, where they're like, start training one client,
yes,
then start training like a small group,
yeah,
and then move on to like a big class, which is
absolutely.
tough in today's affiliate model to be like, hey, start with one person and then build
It's
up from there. But that was the model that Greg had. He was like, okay, if I fill up my calendar, and I'm pretty sure he wrote about this in the journal at some point,
he
like
wrote
the
about
way
it.
that
He's also
he,
talked about it on podcasts.
yeah,
Yeah,
where he was like, I started with doing private training stuff using CrossFit methodology, but
yeah,
doing private training. And when all of my one-on-one slots were booked, and like there's your limit on like how many hours you can train people and how much money you can make just doing one person.
yeah,
So he was like, well, I want to do more. So, hey, Sam, would you mind working out with Kevin?
yeah,
It's like, sure, awesome. Now you got two people in that 1 hour paying you.
right,
And then you start like extrapolate that out. Then you do three people. And like you can
right,
see how that starts to morph into what we see as the class model today.
right.
But Sam's exactly right.
Yeah. So, like, you, the individual person, you know, you being able to be like, I can't make it to the 9:30, I'll go to the noon. That's a recent thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's an interesting thing first, right? So when we talk about like programming for the affiliate versus programming for the individual coach, we are in variance, we are also looking to avoid muscle overuse and muscle over fatigue, right? So, like, in the same way that your classic bodybuilding split, so like an upper lower split would be primarily upper body one day, primarily lower body another day, rest, primarily upper body one day, primarily lower body another day. And you can do some other things. You can do an upper lower split where it's more complicated. So you do a lower pull slash hinge like a deadlift, like supersetted with a bench press. Those are non-conflicting movements, right? And
Yeah.
then on another day, you could do a quad dominant squat or lunge mixed with a pull up or a lat pull down or something like that. And you can like double up things like that, and you can really
Yeah.
start to drive up volume and things.
Yeah.
But it's very carefully structured to avoid just being like, cool, squat every day. So that is also baked into variance. Part of variance is not doing the same thing over and over again, which sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised how easy it is to fuck that up and be like, wait, how the hell have we gone below parallel 3 days in a row? You know? And if you've
Yeah.
never, ever found yourself in that situation, you've never programmed.
Nope. It's, I mean, but sometimes you know, sometimes you can do that and it's okay. Like not maybe not 3 days in a row. Well, to be fair, like
Let's
you
not go
know,
down that rabbit hole. That's super nuancy.
all right.
Yeah,
I
broad
was gonna say
strokes.
I was gonna say redundancy has its place, but
Redundancy does have its place, but like that's like on
yeah,
the
no,
bell curve,
no,
like
I
that's at
get you.
the edge.
Yeah, all right,
And so
fair enough, fair enough. I'll
after
come
that,
back.
we get into like movement selection and just movement selection variance. Okay, squat, hinge, midline, push, pull. You know, maybe lunge if you wanted to do like unilateral squat. Then there's
I say,
variations on all of them. Monostructural
yep,
cyclical movements. There's your cardio bits. And then loaded externally or not, right? So there's variations on all of those. Light, medium, heavy loading,
yeah.
low, medium, high volume. Duration. Is it a long workout because it's a 5 movement chipper and it's 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 on everything? Or is it a long workout because it's a couplet and it's a 30-minute AMRAP? And fuck you. Like,
Oh man, there are some of those that are just, where I did a workout. Oh, what was the reps? It was a 12-minute AMRAP of 7 bar facing burpees, 5 hang power cleans at 135, and 3 muscle ups.
oh,
And it's
grip,
like
grip, 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 grip.
oh dude, so it was redundancy in that sense where like it is pretty grip heavy. But it was
Midline
also
fatigue.
like it's like one round, if you're cooking,
Yeah.
takes 45, 50 seconds.
Right?
And you're like, fuck me. All right. I guess we got 11 minutes and 50 seconds left. All right, cool.
Damn.
And so it's just one of those workouts where when the rounds are really short
Yeah.
for how long the workout is, and it's generally for an AMRAP that happens. You're
Yep.
like, the rounds are going to be so short, but the workout duration is so long. You're like, you got two choices. You can either slow it the fuck down,
Right.
or you're going to be going at like a 7 minute AMRAP pace, and you just have
Yeah.
to hold on for the next
Yeah.
5 minutes. Like you just got to keep it going. And
Well,
those are so
and
hard.
to be fair, in this particular instance, 12 minutes is not long. 12 minutes is
No,
firmly in the middle of that moderate time
right in the
domain.
moderate,
Yeah.
smack dab in the middle of moderate.
Yeah,
But
we don't really
yeah,
even consider long to be like until you get like over 20,
yeah,
right? Which
yeah.
FYI,
I'd
if you're
consider
constantly
long like 20 plus would
exactly.
be long.
And so like as we're starting to define terms here, think about your own affiliate, think about stuff that you've done previously. If your favorite go-to is 20-minute AMRAPs or 20 plus minute AMRAPs, you are not training short and moderate time domains. Your program does not have variance, right? At
Nope,
least not sufficient variance as we've defined it
nope.
here.
Yep,
I also I love it. I love that you answered immediately with variance. My go-to answer is a program sufficiently varied? If it's a
yeah,
sufficiently varied program and that includes some stuff that you're going to be bad at because
yep.
it's skill based. So, like
Hmm.
handstand walking, you're bad at handstand walking, or let's say, you're in an over 60 population and you came into CrossFit at 45 or 50 and you've been doing it for a while, but handstands aren't something you have and you're not really interested. Okay, that's fine. You should still load your upper body and get inverted at least partially. Like, that's a thing
Yeah,
that you should practice
yep.
even at partial body weight. And to a certain extent, it doesn't matter if your goal is to never handstand, like you never want a handstand walk. I still want to simulate that
Yeah,
in some way.
yeah.
Also, one of my least favorite and most effective non-inverted variations for a handstand walk is um, take a barbell, right?
Yeah,
Overhead press, close grip, right?
yeah.
Bands on the edge of the bar, down to
With
kettlebells.
kettlebells. Oh
Yes.
yeah, it's like the bamboo bar,
The bamboo bar. Yeah.
right?
Earthquake
Like that,
bar.
or that's like basically making, um, like it's a, I don't know, like makeshift bamboo bar
It
essentially.
is. Yeah.
Um, Man, that's so good. Because we'll do like, if you want to get really mean, because this makes things worse, is you
Sure.
shoot double dumbbell overhead carry.
Yeah.
Horrible.
So bad.
Um,
So good.
so
So bad.
bad. But and so here's again, if we're getting, I mean, I don't know how nerdy we want to get, but it's like when you're talking like
Broad
movement,
strokes.
if I know, but if you're coaching a class and we're thinking variance,
Yes.
if we're doing handstand walks and every time we do handstand walks, Sam tells me you're just going to do the barbell overhead carry,
Yeah.
it's insufficient variance.
Absolutely.
Like, give me something different to work on. Like, still
Yeah.
work on parts or something that's going to train the handstand walk, but make it give people something new.
So
If
there's
you have people in your class that are always ring rowing on pull up days, it's
right.
insufficient variance.
So like that's a whole other level where it's as
Yeah,
a coach individual to the athlete, there's variance in the application of a movement that exists inside of a varied program.
yeah.
This is
So
in
now you can see why we get so nerdy about these things. It's like you
yes.
say the word variance, and everything that we've been talking about for the past 20 minutes is what goes through me and Sam's head.
Yes, it just
Yeah.
spirals out of control.
So the fact that we're psychopaths shouldn't shock anybody. If you were shocked up until this point, that should explain at least some of it.
Yes, absolutely. So like CrossFit, right? Like
Yeah.
if this is like super high level even still some of the, like the we've listed we've rattled off a whole bunch of fucking variables. It's still super high level and it can still be screwed up.
Yeah.
Like if for a CrossFit program where the goal is increased work capacity across broad time and modal domains, which is CrossFit's definition of fitness, right?
Mhm.
Not to get better at CrossFit, the sport, but to get fitter, the first thing that we want to look for is something that satisfies as many of those variables as possible. Variance, as a big overarching theme, is going to tick all of the boxes. If you have a sufficiently varied program, you are doing light, medium, and heavy loading. You are doing gymnastics, monostructural, and weightlifting movements. You are doing multiple different movement patterns. You are doing short, long, and medium time domains. You're going to tick all the boxes, right? So let's step out of the general, the big overarching, and now into a little bit more specific. I had an athlete come to me on Instagram and say, I don't think this program is a good program.
Ooh.
I said,
Do we want
okay.
to call them out? What program?
I'm not going to say, and I'm not going to say.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
I know this person. I know this person personally. I know where they train,
Okay.
and I know the programming source, and I have an idea of the programming because I know the programming source. But the first thing I said back to this person was, "Well, what are your goals?"
Yeah.
And I got a response, right? And
Hmm.
this response was unique to this person, right? It should be said that I feel that a well programmed CrossFit program would satisfy many of this person's goals, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not in the way that they like, which is a different fucking equation.
That's a way different. Yep.
So different,
Yep.
you know? And so they said, well, they told me what it was, and I said, okay, you have to give me some examples, right?
Yeah.
And they sent a workout. I said, that is not enough.
You like give me a week, a month. Like,
My go-to was I need a minimum of 2 weeks,
okay. Yeah.
right?
So you get a snapshot of kind of yeah. I
Yes.
think that's fair.
And going back to
2 weeks.
the post about Larry, I I think there are some established things like outside of CrossFit, like in general strength and conditioning, like linear progression, right?
Yep.
If I want to get a human stronger, linear progression works. Progressive overload,
100% of the time, every time.
absolutely, right? Who the guy from Starting Strength? Why can't I? The big dude with
Ripito.
the huh? Ripito.
Ripito. Yeah.
Ripito is like there's some great content from Mark Ripito on the internet, and if you want to just
It's
like, it's
amazing.
so
It's
good.
so good.
Like if you want to
So good.
have a no fucks given opinion about strength and conditioning, go watch Mark Ripito videos. He's like, if you are training your 5 basic movements, your overhead press, your bench press, your deadlift, your pull up, and your squat, and if you do so in a 5 by 5 fashion, and every single time you come back, you add 5 to 10 pounds. If you are not doing that and have not reached a point where you have failed your last set of 5, you are not pushing the envelope sufficiently. You're just not doing it. And
Yeah.
it's
You
and
got,
he's
you got to train hard. It's fucking hard.
it's
Have
really
you ever done a 5 by 5 program?
yes.
Because I didn't do starting strength. There's another, it's like strong lifts 5 by 5
Yep.
is like the same thing, but like a different dude that markets it.
Yep.
And it's like slightly different in the movements. I think Ripito included power cleans in his program, whereas like the
Might have.
strong lifts dude did like a second day of deadlifts or something.
Yeah.
Something different with it. And so it's 3 days per week.
Yeah.
It's like 2 to 3 exercises for 5 by 5. You warm up, you do your heavy sets, and then go to the next movement, warm up, do your heavy sets. And by the time you finish that second movement, you're like, I'm fucking cooked. I'm done. It's so hard. And you add 5 pounds to the bar, and man, it makes you stronger. It does.
Yes.
You start lifting weights that you didn't think. You're like, never squatted this for one before. I'm about to do it 5 by 5.
Right.
Don't know how that math works out, but you do it. And it's 100% true that you know,
Yeah.
if you haven't gone through that, if you work in fitness or you're doing fitness and you haven't tried it, just a simple progressive overload program like that, do it.
Yeah.
It will
Yeah.
build some character. It will build some strength. You'll learn some things about yourself, both physically and mentally. But one of my favorite Ripito videos was I don't know if he was pitching or like preaching the idea to a group of people in like a seminar that Olympic weightlifters should low bar back squat. And that's like one of the
Low
touchiest
bar back
subjects.
squat.
Yeah. So he actually made, if you like, I saw a bunch of weightlifters that like commented on it and were having a hissy fit because like in
Yeah.
the sport of weightlifting, it's like, no, we high bar back squat because it
Yeah.
keeps the torso position
Oh, yes,
um,
yes, yes.
and so the weightlifter got all bent out of shape and Ripito is just like having to go. But the thing is, like, if you put on your thinking cap for a second, and I competed
Yep.
in weightlifting, it's like you put on your thinking cap for a second. I'm like, he's making good points. So a low bar back squat generally will have the torso like cantilevered forward more.
Yep.
And he was like, no one can tell me why weightlifters high bar back squat, except for that that's just always the way they've done it. But a back squat for weightlifting is just a general non-specific strengthening exercise. It doesn't
Yep.
translate to the clean or snatch. It's just to make your legs stronger. And John North had a unique take on this where he's like, he squatted with his feet really narrow because he's like, I don't need leg strength to stand up like a snatch or a clean. Like if you catch the balance, it's easy. He
Right.
was like, I'm looking to make my legs stronger for the pull. And because he would get more upright for his pull. So he's like, I'm trying to squat like I pull, so my legs are stronger for that. And that was Ripeto's point. He was like, when you snatch or clean your pull, you're
Yeah.
set more here. Like obviously for your squat, you're more here, but for your pull, you're here. He's like,
Yes.
this mimics the position for a low bar back squat. So if you low bar back squatted as an Olympic weightlifter, like if you did all your squats this way, yeah, poor translation. But as long as you
Sure.
front squat and snatch and everything upright, if you low bar back squatted as your general non-specific thing, your pull would get stronger. And I was like, you're making some really good points, bro. And I don't
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
But it was in exactly how you said, the no fucks given. I'm going to hurt your feelings and I don't care.
Yep.
And I sat there and the weightlifting community lost their mind. It's like, you're wrong. You can't do this. I'm like, guys, he's making good points though.
Yeah.
Like
You
he's
can't argue
like,
with
it makes
physics.
like biomechanically, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll ever see anybody in weightlifting practicing low bar back squats, but I mean, it was a good video. And like, if you want some prime coach rip and if you're a weightlifter or like a high bar back squat enthusiast and you want your feelings hurt, give that video a watch. I'm sure it exists on YouTube somewhere.
Absolutely, it does. And so here's another thing. I'm going to throw a hot take out there. You
Okay,
should
hit me.
not be coaching anyone on a nutrition program if you haven't completed a 6-week weightlifting program with progressive overload.
Say that. So you shouldn't be coaching anyone
You shouldn't.
on
You should be.
nutrition.
You shouldn't be allowed to coach a nutrition program if you haven't completed a progressive overload 4 to 6 week weightlifting program. And I
Okay.
say that from a mental resilience
I was
standpoint.
gonna say I think I know where you're going with that.
Yeah, like
Well, so I think from the mental resilience standpoint of like you need to be pretty fucking hard upstairs to complete a progressive overload program. It's
mhm,
hard.
sure,
But also you're going to have, if you want to get the most out of that program and not die, you're also going to have your nutrition pretty
pretty
to
dialed in.
like keep you recovering and moving the weight that you need to move. So I
Yeah.
think that kind of like the two go hand in hand.
Well, and it's
I get
it's
it. I
not
get
that
what you're saying.
you can't, but like there's going to be some carryover. You're going to be able to have some
Yeah.
conversations with people about. I know this is
Stay the
hard.
course. Yep.
Yes, stay the course. I know this is boring. I know you
Yeah.
want to snatch today or you want to
Yeah.
go do Murph. Like you've
Yeah.
told me that this is important. As your
Yep.
coach, I'm going to tell you that doing 100 pull-ups ain't going to help you squat better. You know,
It's might sound crazy, but no, doing 100 pull-ups will not help your squat.
it's it's good to have variance and to take rest days and all that other stuff. But like, you know, anyway. So I think that as CrossFitters, we get confused because, and now we've talked about this with the a def dose of volume episode, like
Mm.
we confuse the goals of getting better at CrossFit with the goals of getting fitter, and they are not mutually inclusive.
1,000%.
Yes.
There's a lot of things in there and a lot of nuanced stuff you can do to get better at CrossFit.
Yeah.
You see it in the gym all the time. If you spend 5 seconds in an affiliate, someone's going to be like, I think I'm going to do a snatch cycle. I need to work on my snatch.
Right.
It's like, well, is that going to make you fitter or is that just going to make you better at whenever we do snatches so that your
Exactly.
feelings aren't hurt when you have to take some weight off the bar? And I think there's something too. And I really respect people who are like, hey, this is a weakness of mine. I'm going to go work on it outside of class.
Yes.
Like,
And there's
yeah, go ahead.
well, I think that there's a difference between saying I have a weakness and I want to address my weakness and I want to get better at CrossFit, right? So, like for example,
Yeah.
I have an athlete who has one strict pull up. They want to add more strict pull ups to increase their overall pull up capacity. Okay. I don't need to put them on a dedicated pull-up program that takes them out of class. They can do some short accessory work
Yeah.
accompanying their class workouts, and we can be strategic about what we do in class when it's pull-up day, and that will check the box for them. That will get them to where they need to be.
Yeah.
But all this, there's too many things in my brain now. Um, so so like they don't need a dedicated program for that. Like I believe that they will get to the end goal that they want.
Yeah.
I also believe that there is room for things like progressive overload in a well-programmed CrossFit program. Like I have seen examples where, and this is why like seeing multiple weeks of programming is good, because it gives me an idea of, is the programmer including a concept like progressive overload in their, you know, in their programming. CAP, for example, has a monthly theme that they work into the programming cycle. And so like every month it'll be, we're going to get better at gymnastics. And so there is a slight bias one way or the other, right? You can have a truly varied program that avoids bias as much as possible, and that's a great way to do it. I think you can also step away from a pure varied program and have a little bit of a lean one way or the other, as long as you come back and you correct and you don't do it for more than 4 weeks or so.
Yeah.
And you can really help move the needle in some ways for like an entire community, like a month at a time.
Would
And
you go ahead?
go ahead.
I was gonna say, would you count CAP's slight bias, like monthly focus, as like do you think progressive overload fits into that bias? So if you're like each month
Yes.
they have a different focus, like one month you just do progressive overload for weightlifting.
I think that, so I think they would pick a movement like the squat,
Yeah.
and I think that they would have, um, I would not be surprised to find out that Cap would do something like, hey, our movement focus for the month is the squat. We're going to get better at the squat. And twice a week, they would do a heavy day. One of those two heavy days would be a loaded below parallel squat, whether it's front squat, back squat, or overhead squat. And and this is part of the reason I really like CAP for affiliates, is because they're really, really good about establishing intentions with the workout and the stimulus. They make it very clear in the programming notes. They provide all this information en masse, week by week, to the affiliates and coaches. And I think like that's another thing, is like I can look at a program, at a workout, and be pretty good at sussing out like what the intention behind it is, workout by workout. But that doesn't mean it's 100%. And the person who programmed it ultimately has the final say, in the sense that, like, if I tell you we're doing 2159 thrusters and pull ups and it's 9565, if the programmer comes back, they're like, oh, there was a typo, or no, I meant all of these to be strict pull ups, like, totally different ballgame than
Yep.
than Fran.
Yep.
So having an intention is very clear. I think Cap does that very well. And so, like, I think via intention, you can apply a progressive overload principle to a 4-week cycle or something like that.
So
And you
basically
can,
taking the squat days that are varied, going through,
yes,
as you said, different variations, front squat, back squat, overhead squat. As those vary, you're like, hey, if we back squatted threes last week, you're going to try and do the same weight, but we're doing fives,
yeah, like,
like something like that. But we're not saying like for a CrossFit program for CAP, they'd be like, all right, Monday's back squat, Tuesday's press, and we're
no,
like at percentages adding. Okay. I
no,
just want to make sure we were clear there, because I was getting ready to get feisty and disagree with you.
no.
Um,
But like, and that's a super nuancy example of how to
yeah,
apply progressive overload or linear progression, as a more general statement,
yeah, for a
into a
GPP
varied
program.
program. Exactly.
Right.
Whereas like CrossFit.com, they kind of have seasons, it feels like, where a movement or a class of movements will be popular, especially leading up to open season. Please pay attention to those
Yep.
workouts.
Yeah.
Um,
Leading up to competitive season, they give you the secret. We've talked about this before. They
yes,
give
yes,
you
they
all the
have.
secrets.
Um,
They give you the secrets.
but 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 less so than cap.
Yeah.
Because that is pure single workout of the day, and even cap will
Yeah.
now. Cap is kind of occupying this middle ground. There's the workout, but
Yeah.
then they will have a separate section. Whereas, so let's say the workout is handstand push-ups, hang power cleans, and assault bike. Which it doesn't
Who
matter
hurt
what
you?
numbers or weights I say, like that's going to be
Who
awful.
hurt you? Good God.
I know. I love my brain and I hate my brain sometimes. Um,
Oh
so
man.
so the workouts: handstand push-ups, hang power cleans, and um, assault bike. Let's make it reasonable. Let's say the hang power cleans are at like 135.95 for not 20
Yeah.
reps. All right. So like something
Yeah.
that's like what I would call a light to moderate weight in that rep range. As a kind of warm up to that, it's not uncommon for coaches to be like, hey, we're going to take the next 8 minutes and we're going to build to a heavy double hang power clean, right?
Yep. Part of
That
your
is
specific warm up.
part of the specific warm up for the hang power clean. That is different
Yep.
from saying, hey, we're doing a strength piece and
Yeah.
then we're doing a metcon, right?
Yeah.
But even cap has begun to fold the way it's structured, the way it falls into a programming service like not Wodify, what's the other one I'm thinking of? SugarWOD, for
Sugar
example.
wad. There we
Like
go.
it sits as a separate element.
Yeah.
And so the effect that it has on people's psychology is, oh, it's a strength and a metcon, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's how it has to be expressed or that's what the intention of the programmers is. I am telling you that is what my experience is on the being on the receiving end of the athletes, where they come to me and they're like, you know, oh, like at the whiteboard at the end of the workout, they're like, "Do you want my hang power clean weight?" I'm like, "No,"
No.
but it's in sugar wad. Yeah, don't.
It's
Like
like,
I just
yeah. And it's tough because you want to give people that option to log it because then SugarWOD would keep track of what your hang power clean weight was so that next time you know what you did, you can look it up, all that fun stuff. But I think there's
absolutely.
like exactly as you just said, it's the intention and how that's approached.
Yeah,
Because for me, when I'm thinking like, okay, we have the 8 minute window to build to a heavy two hang power clean, it's like, okay, if that's a strength piece, we're doing 5x2 hang power clean.
yeah,
People are going after numbers, and
yeah.
they're like, I want to hang power clean 200 pounds, whatever it
Right.
is. They're going after a
That's a
result or a
strength piece,
number.
a loading.
Whereas in the specific warm up example, hey guys, we're going to take 8 minutes to build to a heavy two.
Yep.
What I'm looking for is you're going after the movement. I want you moving as crisply and sharply as you can
Yeah.
and build as heavy as you can within the confines of not moving like a bag of dicks.
Yes.
So that's the idea is we're still warming up the movement. We're practicing the movement. We're just adding load
Yes.
as opposed to I want you to hit X
I
numbers. And I
want you to
think
seek
that's
intensity in that move.
exactly.
Yes.
So it's not so much the intensity.
Right.
However, the way that serves is that's how we can kind of serve multiple different, you get questions all the time, coaches, how do I serve multiple levels of athlete? I have Sally, who just came in CrossFit today.
Yeah.
And then I have Jack, who's been doing CrossFit 10 years and he's a stud. Well, so what happens is for Sally, she gets to practice the movement under some load.
Yes.
And then she gets an idea of kind of where she's going to be for the workout. You, as the coach, can see her move under load and see what needs to happen. While Jack, being a capable and very proficient athlete, can actually build quite heavy on
Yes.
his hang power clean. And obviously, we still want him moving well, but
Yes.
he can build quite heavy and get kind of a intensity stimulus from that just in a smaller dose so that it
Yeah.
doesn't wreck him for the workout, the
Right.
main training piece for the day.
Yeah. And it's a nice challenge in this case for a Jack because that can give an athlete like that a little bit of an opportunity to be like, okay, how fast can I build? Right. So like, because if I'm only giving you 8 minutes, like you can only do
Yeah.
so many sets, right?
Yep.
And so if you want to lift heavy, you got to move. And
Yep.
I still don't want you to move poorly. I'm still going to, like, as a coach, I'm still going to be looking and being like, flat back, bar close to the shins, and I'm looking for those things that I want from every athlete in the class. But if you want to push the envelope on the loading within the confines of optimal movement, you're
Yep.
not going to be able to like sit around and just fucking yak. So bringing all of this back to like identifying bad programming, like So now, of all the things that we've talked about, if your program claims to be a CrossFit program and you never do snatches and you never do muscle ups and you never handstand walk, I'm going to tell you that it's probably not the best CrossFit program, right?
I'd say, yeah, putting that in words, like if you never practice skills
If you never
or
practice
skill
insert word
based
here.
move, yeah,
Yeah,
if you never practice skill based movements, that's usually the big one that
it
people
really is.
miss is like that, like skill based movements. You know, you could call it gymnastics. You could also like chuck, like clean and jerk
Snatches.
and snatch in there. I
Yep.
mean, yeah, today class work at a tilt, heavy split jerk, fives,
Yeah.
threes, ones,
Oh, oh,
boom. It's like it's phenomenal.
that is
Split jerk
great.
it's my favorite. It makes me so happy. But it's like you're pushing. So like we had it was like heavy split jerk day, and then like a quick little burner at the end. There's like some
Yep.
push jerks and chest to bar pull ups.
Oh, yeah.
Gross. Um, 7 minute AMRAP, 10 and 10,
Oh, oh,
115 bar.
oh.
Oh baby,
Hang on.
filthy. Yeah, filthy. So it's like it's kind of funny because I'm going through and like as crossfitters generally we don't split jerk like an absurd amount. If you do a clean and jerk, then like split jerk is one of the options you can do,
Yeah.
but it's outside of people's comfort zone, right? So
Yeah.
I'm teaching a split jerk, we're getting people into positions, and you can tell like they're doing it, but they're not super comfy as we get through the lifting. Like, all right, cool, we start getting the rhythm for it. As soon as we bring everything back down, we start warming up for the push jerk for the workout.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, boom, I'm
Yeah.
back in my comfort zone, baby.
Exactly.
And it's kind of interesting as a coach to like see that shift. It's like, but that doesn't mean, oh, let's just not do the split jerk anymore because they're clearly more comfortable with the push jerk. It's like, no, you should continue to touch on the split jerk so that they get more comfortable with it,
Yep.
you know? And
Yeah.
that's an interesting kind of maybe a shift in thinking for some people.
I think
But
so.
I would say when it comes to the variance piece, is if you're doing a CrossFit program or at least a
Yeah.
program that claims to be CrossFit,
Yeah.
um, and you're not practicing skill-based movements,
Yeah.
then or things you don't like,
Yeah.
you could throw that in there. If you're only doing things that you like and you enjoy, then
Yeah.
it's probably because you're good at those movements, and so you're neglecting things you're not good at.
I would say then that good CrossFit programming is inclusionary in the sense
Yep.
that it tries to address via variance as many weaknesses as possible across the broadest population as possible.
Yep.
Now, how that is like if you have a program that is a strength and metcon program, but there is sufficient variance,
Yep.
I mean there can be like if the movements are varied enough, but there's almost always a lifting piece and then a metcon piece. Like there's some wiggle room.
Yeah.
I don't
There's
I
a bit
don't
of
want to be
wiggle
like
room.
yeah like I
I'd
don't want
still
to
argue that you can't get like you can't really train unless you
like
just omit a warm up, like the
right.
longer time domains for a workout.
And so in that you don't get the fullest expression of
Right.
variance, but you're a
You can
lot
do okay.
closer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're a lot closer.
You're doing
Whereas
pretty darn good.
if you're doing a strength and a metcon program that never does high skill gymnastics and never does dedicated weightlifting as an example, or like skill based weightlifting like the split jerk or something like that, okay, you're starting to verge away from variance.
Yeah.
And then finally, if you are seeking out a program that looks or gives you a certain thing, you're probably not looking for a CrossFit program. And that's okay.
Yep.
Like it's
It's
really
okay.
okay to have a specific goal and to like the cool thing about where we are like as a society via technology and all that stuff is like there's so many ways to say yes to something and then be like I'm going to go off, I'm going to do this thing, and then I get to come back, or I get to go play with this for a while and then I can come back and do this thing. Like
Yep.
exercise is in its benefits are can be expressed a bunch of different ways. And so kind of capping everything off because I know we're getting close here to the end of our time. Identify what's important to you as the athlete. Like be honest with yourself, because if you can't be
Yeah.
honest with yourself, it's going to be impossible for you to be honest with your coach, and your coach can't help you.
Yep.
Like, we're like veterinarians. We're fucking guessing. Um,
Yep.
and like, if you don't tell us, like, if you don't tell us the truth, we're guessing about the best way to help you.
We can only go based on the information that we have.
Absolutely. And then once you're honest with yourself and what your goals are, like, then it gets a lot easier to identify good programming from bad programming. Don't look at things in a vacuum. Don't look at single days. Look
Yep.
at 2 weeks
Big picture.
or more, big picture. Look for themes, because it's like, if I take a single weight, a weigh in on a scale, and I get a single thing, it's like, am I healthy? I don't know. What was I like before? Where am I going? Like, trend lines matter. Longitudinal data matters. So
Hmm.
be honest. Look at more than just a day, and then above all, if I can get after it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you have questions on this stuff, you need help,
Yes.
we've got, he is at Coach Sam Burns.
Mm-hmm.
I am at Kevin McCarthy 21. We are at Talking Average Fitness.
Yeah.
Slide in them DMs. We
Yeah.
love to talk about this stuff. As you could probably tell, we're nerds.
Just maybe.
We've talked about this. We've had other people come on that already know we were nerds somehow. So clearly we have a reputation for being nerds about this stuff. So we definitely won't shy away from a good quality conversation with you on stuff like this. And we want to help. So
Yeah.
let us know.
Yeah, please, if you have questions, we've had a bunch of people reach out. Continue to do so. Continue to ask questions. Continue to tell us we're crazy. Whatever. It helps give us information, and it helps us kind of dictate where we want to go with this.
Yeah.
So everyone, as we're approaching Memorial Day, don't be stupid. Don't do 100 pull-ups before Murph coming up, and keep your hands intact. And other than that, we will see you here next week. Special guest? Yes, I think so.
Potentially, maybe.
Let's say yes. Let's book that for a
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
Okay. We'll
Yeah.
say yes.
We'll say yes. And then until then, Kevin, be awesome.
Go
Take
forth.
it.
Be awesome. Stay caffeinated.
Stay caffeinated. Hell yes. All right. Take it easy, everybody.